is a summary of Happy Kids Triennial Evaluation in which I presented on April 4th of 2019. Um, so Happy was evaluated as part of his legally required 3-year to determine whether or not he continues to have autism as a disability, um, and whether he continues to need special education and related services, and whether or not there should be any additions or modifications to the special education individual education program. So just going through, looking at his background information, Happy is a 16-year-old boy who attends Angelo Rodriguez High School in Fairfield, California. He passed his vision and screening, vision and hearing screening, both vision with his glasses, which is important to know and remember. For most of his developmental and health history, I wrote in there just to refer to prior reports and records. I was able to speak to Happy's parents on March 22nd by telephone. When I called home, Mr. Kidd answered the phone. And my first question was whether or not there had been any health changes or medication changes in which we should be aware of. And Mr. Kidd said that at that time there were not. In regards to academically or at school, Mr. Kidd was worried about Happy not taking his academics seriously and the amount of time he wants to play or utilize items such or electronics such as tablets, Chromebooks, and cell phones when he should be working in class. And at that time, those were the only concerns. As we'll go through, we'll see that he has a few things in his discipline record that the parents were concerned over. So on March 19th was one of the times that I was able to meet with Happy, and I asked him the same interview questions that I ask the other students. It was very insightful to get some of the answers from him. There was concerns about him only responding to questions the way he had been taught. So I thought this was something good. One of the things that when I asked him what his weaknesses were, he said hard English. And so he also said that English was his strength of his, but also that he knows that it gets hard for him. When asked what he needs to work on to improve his performance in school, he responded that you have to get good grades. And so that is accurate. One of the other questions that I thought was an interesting response from him, and then later after meeting the parents during the IEP, is what responsibilities and job experiences have you had? In which he said no. And so after querying more, I asked about any jobs, and he said no jobs and no chores at home. And so I would find out later more about that. His favorite things to do at school are to be involved in PE and playing on a cell phone and Chromebook. Happy has been in the FSUSD school district since kindergarten. He's passing all of his grades. He's taken all the assessments, and you can look and see those in the report. Some of the items on the discipline record were important because it adds to the overall kid. So January 8th, the type of incident was stolen property. And so it was reported to admin that a student's phone was stolen during Happy's advisory period. The student left their phone on their desk, went to get supplies, and when he came back to sit down, the student said that the phone was missing. Apparently, a para had found it to be in Happy's backpack. And then just going back, he's got some disruption and defiance in regards to sensory motor. So there are a few incidences in his discipline record in which Happy had gotten blood, like picked at himself or other areas of his body, and was playing with the blood and putting it on school property or other people. And there's a few incidents where they tried to work with him to get that. Also, during that time, he needed a sensory box, which anyway, he was also found to be in possession of a phone that was stolen from his fifth period ceramics class. So Happy does attend class in some gen ed settings, and one of them ceramics, in which he was found, like I said, to be in possession of a cell phone. Prior to that, he had stolen his paraeducator's cell phone. And Happy likes to ask questions. They've had to remind him of what questions are appropriate and what questions are not, due to the cognitive levels of students in the classroom. They know information, and what happened was Happy had asked them all these questions in regards to their student numbers, birth dates, addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, and apparently he was able to hack in or create some accounts in which he shouldn't have. He was observed in his social science class. When I walked in this day, Happy was sitting at the board, maybe like this close away, not wearing glasses, couldn't see, squinting. He was very good at going up and down, following along. When he couldn't see, he was very good about telling his teacher that he couldn't see, and he would move to both sides of the classroom. What else during that? He very often looked up and squinted at me, and at this point we hadn't met each other officially, and it was just a hypothesis of mine that he was squinting at me, trying to figure out if he knew who I was or if I was a familiar face or not. Otherwise, he did well in the classroom. He followed directions, did as he was told when he was prompted. Towards the end of the observation, he came up to me and asked if he could ask me some questions. And very interesting, he has running papers. He has the most neatest handwriting I've ever seen. Asked everybody all the same questions. Where's your house? How many stories? How many bedrooms? How many TVs? What brand TVs? What number of TVs in each room? And if things didn't make sense to him, because I have a loft upstairs, so it's a 2-story-ish, but no bathroom, no other bedrooms, and he couldn't get it, and it was adorable. He's one of my favorites that I've worked with. Teacher input, he has 2 of his sped teachers that he goes back and forth with as part of the Pearl program. With one of them, he spends more time within the other, but both maintain that he requires extra time and assistance on all tasks. He has trouble staying focused on certain topics, and that his inability to focus and stay on topic hinders his ability to complete work independently. He does like to volunteer to read in class, and so that is one of the good things. He likes to take surveys of staff and peers. And so that was kind of just getting to know each other. The previous test results showed that 3 years ago he was actually given the WJ4, in which he ranged from very low to average in certain areas. And then this year, it actually when evaluated with the WASI, showed that his scores were consistent with previously assessed cognitive skills, and that his IQ is likely in the very low to low range. Behaviorally, we've got some concerns in certain areas. We when given the BASC, the parent rating scales, nothing was returned at the time this report was written, so this was all based off of teacher scales. Some areas of concern for Happy on the BASC were the items of working with others, sharing ideas, feelings, or experiences, communicating clearly, and beginning conversations. So, as part of the teacher input as well, Happy has a hard time initiating conversations, or when in a conversation with others, continuing the conversation if it is not a topic he doesn't find interest in. He will always find a way to bring it back in. We also have a rating scale from the GARS-3, which shows the probability of autism. And on this autism index with the likely characteristics, he was scored to be very likely. Let's see. So in regards to that, there's maladaptive speech difficulties, including speaking in an abnormal tone, volume, or rate, but does not include uttering idiosyncratic words or phrases that have no meaning to others. So he has difficulty understanding jokes when someone is teasing him. He's unable to predict probable consequences in social events. So there's some of those things that we could see in his interactions with his peers and other students on campus. Let's see. In regards to the social emotional learning edition of the social skills improvement system, in the social emotional composite, he was below average, and in the social awareness, below average. So again, that's his relationship skills. So he has problems forming relationships with others, struggling to communicate with others, and sometimes his responsible decision making. So they're showing that there's significant problems with good decision making simply because he can't do those things at this time. So yeah, again, with the decisions and personal behavior that are not consistent with social norms. So he does, referring back to the discipline with his sensory needs and the blood and putting it on property and others. And there's some other behaviors he has, putting his hands in personal places and then bringing them up to smell and just touching others and such. For the WJ that was administered by his teachers, he scored very low to average in certain areas, and there is a teacher's report if you would like to read more into that. So at this time, I did recommend that he continue to receive special education services under the disability of autism. He continues to demonstrate an IQ score in the very low range. Happy's scores appear impacted by his autism. He has significant academic difficulties in reading, writing, and oral comprehension, with mathematics as a relative strength for him. So, social emotional functioning indicate difficulty with social interactions, social communications, atypicality, withdrawal, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. So, taking those into consideration, it is my opinion that he continued to meet eligibility for special education services.